Welcome to the Gaudium et Spes podcast, where every other week we bring you Catholic teachings and stories of faith from people throughout the Diocese of Pensacola-Tallahassee. Now, here are your hosts, Suzanne McNinch and Ches Filippini.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Gaudium et Spes podcast. If you haven't, please check out our last episode where we did a human interest story, and Ches and I were back in the studio, and we had recently ordained, or within the last 7 months, Father William Gibson and Father Peter Jutras. And it was really nice catching up with both of them and finding out how their first 7 months have been on the job, you know, them coming back close to home again and spending time with family and friends. And it was really insightful, Ches. I really enjoyed having them on the show.
I like them. We were very impressed. We had a great conversation afterward. We were just like, dang.
I know.
They got going on. So
they do, very
great.
much so.
Excellent. We're back in the studio again, guys. It's the last episode of 2025.
Wow.
Here we are again. I'm going to do the line. We already had a pre-show conversation, and we're talking about our joys, hopes. So anyhow, you know the line, guys. Gaudium et Spes, paragraph 1. The joys, the hopes, griefs, and anxieties of the men of this age, especially those who are poor or in any way afflicted. These are the joys, the hopes, the griefs, and anxieties of the followers of Christ. It's a big feelings time of year. A lot. Oh my gosh, so many things going on. I've stirred up for you. What you been thinking of lately?
Yeah, well, you know, I mean, we talked a little bit earlier about how time flies the older you get, and when you're younger, it seems to just drag by at moments. And why is that? So it's very weird. But you know, I think the key thing to remember is to just live in the moment and enjoy, you know, every day as a new day, because we don't know if the next is coming or not. Yeah. So, yeah.
We're talking about patience.
We are
contemplating the word of the year, and this.
I am. That was my word of the year a couple of years ago, and I'm finding that I think I need a little bit more of a reminder every once in a while that patience is a very good virtue to have. So it may be my word of the year. I haven't officially decided yet. I still have, I don't know how many days till the end of the year to decide. 14 days. Oh gosh, now the pressure's on. So we'll see what that ends up being. But no, it's exciting. You know, a year. Holy smokes.
Yeah. That time flying thing. A year feels like, we're kind of reviewing what was I doing a year ago. Last year was kind of like all around. My dad was in his final stages of illness. It's just like, oh my gosh, that feels like it just happened. And those moments when you hit the calendar dates, it always kind of brings it up. But exactly, and led to that same kind of, it literally feels like it happened. Like if you were like, that was like last month, be like, yep, that feels like last month. But yet the calendar has changed, and it's 350 odd days ago now. So bizarre. It's a bizarre spiritual experience that you're just like, why does time fly? Why do I have to tell myself to be patient? The last thing, well, kids have to be told to be patient all the time.
True.
But time moves so slow in some instances when you're young, and now it just kind of goes like,
yeah. It does. Well, so I don't think I've ever asked you this question before, but do you have any family traditions for Christmas?
We do. We are, as I was growing up, it was dedicated. Christmas Eve was taken over by the Italian side of things. So the Feast of the Seven Fishes, the famous Feast of the Seven Fishes, which you develop a taste for as you get older. And my kids still have not. But that's always dominated Christmas Eve. But then, especially growing up in Pennsylvania, when my mom's mom, my Oma, was still alive on the German side of the family, that was, Christmas Day was German. So it was like, it was a sauerkraut. It was mostly a roast type of deal, some variation. Usually German potato salad, which if you've never had German potato salad, vinegar-based.
Lovely.
Incredible. If you don't like mayonnaise, or you don't like mayonnaise mixed in everything, go German potato salad. It'll totally change your mind on that whole thing. So we're probably going to bring that back, especially for this year. And it was pretty American though, besides that.
Yeah.
Gosh, we have been totally swallowed up. I was talking about this with somebody. Bishop is celebrating the 9 a.m. Mass at the cathedral. So if you want to go to see the bishop on Christmas Day, he'll be at the cathedral this year. And they're like, oh, that Mass must be packed. I'm like, you'd be surprised. I mean, it's full. Everyone has so shifted to the Christmas Eve Mass, I feel like. I don't know where you are.
We did. We shifted a long time ago, and that's where we're going to be again this year, 4 p.m. on the Christmas Eve. So, yes.
So I feel like growing up, it was basically, okay, you had your midnight massers, and but there were still 2 or 3 masses on Sunday, or sorry, on the day of Christmas. Literally, the cathedral has one. I think most of our parishes have one, and that's all they need. But they need like 4 on Christmas Eve. So
there's quite a bit. I don't know. I like it because it's still the family children's one, and so
that's why we go.
Depending on where you go, they all celebrate things a little differently. But it's just a great atmosphere. And then you always run into people maybe that the twofers that you only see twice a year and things like that.
Too.
But we do love you very much.
Keep coming back.
Yes.
Oh man! If you guys want to, drop in a comment or anything that's basically like, are you a Christmas Eve or are you Christmas Dayer? We would love to know, so we can tell our priests to better adjust their schedules. They're like, we're missing a 5:23 start time. That would be like the sweet spot for our family. That would be helpful. All right, guys. Well, speaking of time flying, Bishop has an end of the year review. He has had one of the craziest years, maybe. I don't know. Every year is crazy for him, but he has done so much this year. He has experienced so many things. So we're delighted to have him just describe his year and what he's experienced, and we'll see you on the other side.
Hello. As we come to the end of the calendar year, in this episode, I want to talk about kind of the highlights of the year, not just a list of things that we did in the diocese and that we got to experience and celebrate, but just kind of my take on some of them as well. I looked at my calendar in preparation for this over the last year, and it was amazing how many things how many liturgies I was able to celebrate and be part of, how many groundbreakings and blessings our diocese had, how many ordinations, etc. It's been a good year. Every year, of course, is also filled with challenges and difficulties, and there were those as well. But I thought it would be appropriate, especially in this episode, to kind of highlight all the good things that we were able to be a part of this year. I think one of the things especially that's important for us in this podcast is we celebrated our 100th episode of this podcast, and that was fun. We were able to kind of look back and talk about the beginnings of this, just how it came as an idea, and what we wanted to do is have an opportunity to teach the faith. So I get to do that every other episode, as well as highlight some of the ministries and the good people of our diocese who are doing so many good things around the diocese. And amazingly enough, we've already surpassed our 100th episode, and we are moving on. So that was a big highlight. That was a fun episode. If you haven't seen that, go back and check that out. That's really fun. Another major highlight this year was celebrating ordinations. I mean, it's always wonderful when we can do that, of course, in our diocese, and I love it. It's one of my favorite liturgies to celebrate. But especially this year, there were 6 ordinations for our diocese, for service in our diocese, 5 new priests and 1 deacon as well. And then I was also privileged to assist the Congregation of Holy Cross by ordaining 4 new deacons in August at Notre Dame. So that's 10 ordinations for me for this year, and it's just really awesome. In case you're wondering, yes, I do count them. I decided to keep track of all of the ordinations that I have celebrated, as well as the ordinations and installations of bishops that I attend, because I haven't ordained any bishops, but I get to concelebrate those. For one of them, for my friend Bishop Pat Neary of St. Cloud, I was actually able to be one of the consecrators. That is, the 2 bishops on either side of the main consecrating bishop. But I digress. We had 10 ordinations. I celebrated 10 ordinations this year. In January, it was I ordained Deacon David L., who's also the COO of the diocese, but he's also now a deacon for service in the church, specifically at the Cathedral of Sacred Heart. And then we ordained 4 young men at the end of May, new priests for service in our diocese. And then just recently, we got to ordain 1 more person, Fernando Diaz, for service in our diocese as a priest in Panama City at St. Dominic. And then in, I think it was August, I got to go back to Notre Dame to celebrate the ordination of 4 young men. 2 are from the United States and 2 from Bangladesh. So as I said, it's one of my favorite liturgies. It might be the favorite, but it's tied, I suppose. I'll mention another one here in a moment. But it's just such a great blessing. People say, what is it like to be there, to be right there, and you're actually laying hands on them and anointing their hands if they're priests, What is that like? And I honestly say it's like having the best seat in the house. I'm watching what God is doing. Yes, of course, I'm doing the gestures and everything else in the prayers, but this is really God's doing. God is ordering our church in this way. That's why we call it holy orders. God orders our church to do this, it brings order into our church so that we may praise him and extend the reign of God in the world. And so it really is just really awesome to do. And again, to have 5 new priests in 1 year is a tremendous blessing for our diocese. Okay, so I hinted that was my favorite liturgy, the celebration of an ordination, but also there's something else, and that is the dedication of a new altar. Oh, I love that because it is so meaningful, so good, and we use so many symbols and prayers and tangible things: water, smoke, oil, the white sheet, the white altar cloth, fire, candles, etc. It's really great. So I got to do that at one place, and that was at John Paul II Church in Tallahassee. That is a new church for us, a new church building. The church already existed, that is the people of God, but they were celebrating Mass outside on the grass at John Paul II High School there in Tallahassee. Well, we acquired a new building from another denomination that was folding and had to leave, and did a lot of renovations to make it really Catholic. And there now we celebrated the dedication of the altar and the blessing of that new church for us. And again, it was great. Why do I like that so much? I think I told you, because of all of the great symbolism and the things that we do, but especially a key moment there is pouring the chrism on the altar on all 4 corners. It says, I believe the rubrics say something like the bishop pours a handsome amount or something like that. They want a copious amount, I don't know, of the chrism. And then I take my time, we're supposed to take our time and rub it into every inch, every surface area of that altar. And it really is profound, and I loved that. So, but it wasn't just there at John Paul II Church in Tallahassee, but there were so many other blessings and groundbreakings and prayers for new beginnings. I tried to list them all. I apologize if I will miss some of them, but here they are. Our Lady, Queen of Martyrs, the Vietnamese Catholic Church here in Pensacola. We celebrated the blessing of the new site where the new church will go. And then right after that, the old church, which was the library for St. Thomas More School, and was then made into a church, and they used that for a couple of decades. It's really a tired building. That was demolished, and now they're building up a new church there. That'll be really neat for that community. Also, Trinity Catholic School in Tallahassee is building an addition to their school and to their parish hall. And I toured that a couple of days ago, actually, with my hard hat and everything. It's really going well. That should open in April. And then after that, they hope to continue to fundraise to perhaps build a gymnasium and another, I believe, music room or something like that for the students. Morning Star High School in Pensacola expanded with a new building and opened that this year. We have a new school in the diocese, Holy Family Academy in Niceville. And so that's a great blessing for us. We have a new office building. Where? New office building. Oh, that's here. Sorry, I made this list. So the diocese purchased, you'll hear more about this later, but the diocese purchased, I say office building and people think of a high rise or something. It's one level, but it's an big L-shaped building in the neighborhood near the cathedral. And we purchased that from an agency that was actually helping people to procure abortions in other states. They were hoping that the amendment would pass here in Florida so that abortions would be legal on demand, so that perhaps they could do that there. Anyway, after that did not pass, thanks be to God, they had to leave. We purchased that building. It's being rehabbed now, and now we're going to use that as to for Catholic charities, for Catholic counseling, and also for adoption services as well. So it's really a neat turnaround there. More info and pictures and videos will come later, of course. We have, not only do we have the St. Brendan Center, which is a retreat center that we use during the day. We don't really have a lot of overnight capacity there, so we use that for days and maybe some weekend retreats. But there, potentially, we are looking into purchasing a very large area that will serve as a really awesome retreat center for our diocese and for this whole area. More information is coming about that later as well. There's a new parish center, also in Niceville at Christ Our Redeemer. Beautiful building. And beautiful renovations in St. Patrick's Parish in Apalachicola, etc. So and so there you go. I listed several things. I probably missed a few. Other pastors and principals are saying, "Wait, you forgot about," and I'm sorry if I did. Isn't that great though that we have so many that we, I have to list all of these accomplishments, blessings, and groundbreakings. So that was good. Of course, another highlight is always, every year, our diocese hosts Catholic Days at the Capitol during the legislative session. For a couple of days, we invite Catholics from all over the state to come and pray for our legislators, to lobby, to learn about the legislative process, and then the highlight is to celebrate Mass. We call it the Red Mass because it's just the traditional color for the legislators. And we invite those from the Capitol, including the governor and his staff, to come to the Mass. And they did this year, and so it was really, really wonderful. But it's a proud moment for our diocese because being the Diocese of the Capitol, if you will, in which the Capitol is located, it is our proud duty to do that, to host everyone and to celebrate the Mass at the Co-Cathedral in Tallahassee. Speaking of Tallahassee, we celebrated our first 50th anniversary as a diocese celebration in the Co-Cathedral a few weeks ago, and that was glorious to recall what God has done and is doing in this local church, starting in 1975. Nope, really going all the way back to Jesus. I kind of walked us through the progression of how we became a diocese, going backwards. We were founded in 1975, but before that, we were part of St. Augustine and Mobile. There also were times that we were part of Savannah and New Orleans and Mobile again. And going back before that, it was Santiago, Cuba. And before that, it was Spain. And who was the apostle to Spain but St. James the Apostle? So in a sense, St. James was our first bishop of this diocese. And that was really a great celebration then. We'll do that 3 more times next year. The celebration of our 50th anniversary in Panama City, in Fort Walton Beach, and in Pensacola. Okay, I mentioned that we ordained David L. to the diaconate, Deacon David L. We started now a new deacon class, if you will, a cohort of 12 men who are now in formation to, if it is God's will, become deacons for our diocese in a couple of years. That is great news as well. We also, in addition to doing a lot of prison ministry, we celebrated several Colby prison ministry retreats. And we have a team of people in our diocese who go into some of the prisons and are allowed to give a retreat for 3 days. I say allowed to because, there are a lot of rules and stipulations for going into a prison. And yet they kind of open the doors, well, for us anyway, to be there for 3 days, to set up kind of a shop, if you will, in the chapel there in the little kitchenette, and to bring in food from the outside and bring in statues and rosaries and Bibles and all of that. And it is a decidedly Catholic retreat. Like I said, we pray the rosary with them. We pray the Divine Mercy Chaplet with them. We talk about the saints. We talk about the sacraments, etc. for 3 days. And for many of them, I'm privileged to come on the last day and the third day and celebrate the Eucharist with them. And boy, that is exciting. I have to tell you this. Once, just recently, I went to a prison for that reason, to celebrate Mass at the end of a retreat. And after I got through security there, and I got through, and they locked the door behind me. So now I'm in the yard there, just walking with my vestments and everything toward the chapel, and I hear this rumbling. And it kind of sounded like chanting or people banging on tables. And I thought, oh my gosh, it could be a riot here or something. Which means I don't fear for my safety, but I thought, well, that's going to mean that we're going to have a lockdown and I won't be able to get out of here for a while. But as I got to the chapel, it got louder and louder and louder. They were just thumping on the tables and chanting something. And finally, when I came to the door, I saw they formed a tunnel. All these men, 60 men, formed a tunnel for me, and they were chanting Bishop Bill, Bishop Bill. And it was loud, and then big applause. It kind of worked me up. I think the team just really, said, he's coming. It's going to be great, And it was really fantastic. We celebrated a really good Mass, and then I stayed with them and ate with them and answered their many questions and celebrated reconciliation with them. But I just love that, and I love that we do these retreats regularly. We had several of those in our diocese. There were many, many confirmations this year, and I love to celebrate those. Again, that might be tied as well with the other two. All right, I like all liturgy, but especially ordinations, dedications of the altar, and confirmations. And interestingly enough, those are things that are proper to the bishop. I got to visit many of our parishes, almost all of them this year, and schools, all the schools. I always love that. How can we not mention this year kind of just the earth-shattering events of the death of Pope Francis, and then the conclave and the election of Pope Leo XIV. That also had a profound impact, not only on me, but I know on you and on the whole church and the world, really. And it was beautiful to go through, to see, to be a part of. The last days, we didn't know it was the last days of Pope Francis. We knew that he was quite ill, but who knew that just hours before he died, that he would give us his final blessing. If you remember, it's very profound. He tried to raise his hand when he was in the wheelchair there in the balcony, tried to raise his hand to bless all of us, and he wished us a happy Easter and told us that the joy of Easter is the peace that Christ offers all of us. And then he died a few hours later. And then we had the conclave, remember, who's going to be elected pope? Who's it going to be? Will there ever be a pope from the United States? Probably not. And then the incredible surprise that it is Pope Leo XIV, who was born in Chicago and lived here in the U.S. and then ministered a lot of his life in Peru. And then his first words on that same balcony were the words of Christ after his resurrection, "Peace be with you all." And I think at that point, when I saw that, I just kind of sighed and just felt like, okay, good. It's amazing. We have such continuity, for 2,000 years. Just, the death of one pope leads to the installation of a new one who is not here to change everything of his predecessor, but to continue that ministry, which is, of course, the ministry of Christ. I talked about Pope Leo. I have not met him yet. I look forward to meeting him, hopefully maybe next year or the year after that on my next trip to Rome. Okay. And then also, I talked about ordinations. I did not ordain any bishops. That was not asked of me, and that's a little above my pay grade, although any bishop can ordain a bishop, but I've not been asked to do that. But I was a co-consecrator, like I said, for one of my friends and brothers in Holy Cross. However, this was a year in which I attended and concelebrated 4 ordinations or installations of new bishops, or bishops in new dioceses. One was Bishop Simon Peter in Homa Thibodeau. That was really exciting to celebrate his ordination and installation. Another one was Bishop Greg Caccinelli. He is an auxiliary bishop for the Archdiocese for Military Services. And that was in Miami. That was really neat. And then the installation of 2 bishops. One is Archbishop Joe Vasquez as the new Archbishop of Galveston, Houston. He was my bishop when I served as pastor in Austin. And then Archbishop Mark Rivituso, our neighbor to the west in the Archdiocese of Mobile. That's always really exciting to do that as well. And then another thing, and probably the last thing I want to mention is, this is really important and for our diocese, and that is we made the official move to go to do the restored order of the sacraments over the course of the year. And that is, hopefully you've heard about that. If you're in this diocese, you should know about this. But it is an effort to restore the original order of the sacraments. That is, to celebrate baptism, then to celebrate confirmation, and finally the Holy Eucharist, First Holy Communion, as the apex, the climax of the sacraments of initiation. For many years, decades really, not centuries, but decades, we have celebrated confirmation, usually for young people in middle school or high school, and there's a movement now to kind of bring that back down to even before First Holy Communion. And so we're doing that in the diocese. That requires, change is always difficult, but it's going to require a lot of efforts on families to catechize their children, to form their children, not just for the reception of the sacraments, but for a lifetime of faith and discipleship with the Lord. So it's a big move for our diocese, but so far I know it's challenging, like I said, but I think it's going well. And because of that, we're going to see some very large classes or groups of confirmation in the near future, I know, which is very exciting as well. Another highlight, I guess, was being elected chair-elect of the Committee on Evangelization and Catechesis for the USCCB. So the USCCB has many committees like doctrine and worship and things like that. And that's where a lot of the work gets done throughout the year. And then when we meet in Baltimore or the session in the summer, then we vote on certain things that the committee puts forward. And so one of those committees is the Committee on Evangelization and Catechesis. I have not been on that committee. I didn't really run for chair for that committee, but I was nominated by my brothers to be on the ballot. And then I can't believe it, but they voted for me over Bishop Earl Fernandez, who I think would have been much better. But anyway, he's a great bishop of Columbus there in Ohio. So what happens, people say, well, what does that mean? Well, it doesn't start until next November, the end of the bishops' meetings next November. And there I would be, so after that, then I would chair this committee. Some of the responsibilities of this committee include the catechism, any texts about the catechism or any proposed additions or changes to the catechism go through that committee, as well as books for religious education or Catholic schools, that goes through there. And then another major task is to oversee the National Eucharistic Congress. And we've announced that the next National Eucharistic Congress will be in 2029, which would be my last year as chair. So I'll be part of that wonderful effort. So, and it also means that I'm on the administrative committee for the USCCB. So I'll get to see how that runs and be a part of that decision-making process and the discernment for all of that we take on. So a little bit more work maybe, but I'm honored to do it and I'm happy to do that. And I think of all the committees, that one is the best fit. I'm really not one for doctrine or worship. I think I leave that to maybe the smarter guys, but no, I don't mean that. But to men who are better equipped for those roles. But I'm really happy to be part of this, the Committee on Evangelization and Catechesis. These are the highlights that I thought of for the year. There are many more. I mean, a great highlight is just being here among you and being the bishop of this great diocese, being with our priests. We, of course, celebrated our we didn't celebrate. We gathered for convocation in the spring and then our priest retreat in the fall. I also gathered with the deacons for their retreat in the fall. I love that. I love to be around my brothers and to encourage them, to lift them up, to thank them for their selfless service in our diocese. And then, of course, just going all around the diocese to meet the principals and the teachers of our schools and the staffs in our parishes and volunteers. It is a great joy. It's something I love, and it gets me out of the office, which is fine. I get it. I have to do a lot of that too, but I'd rather be out there in the parishes and schools and celebrating liturgies. So these are the highlights that I wanted to share with you. Through it all, I pray that God is blessing us, that God is transforming us, changing us, molding us into in the image of his beloved Son, Jesus Christ. which really is the goal for us for all time. And as time unfolds, secular time or liturgical time in the liturgical year, the hope is for us to be to become more and more like Jesus Christ, the Son of God, so that we may know the Father, and through the Holy Spirit, we may be with the Father and all the saints in the kingdom of heaven. May God bless us as we continue to go forward as disciples of Jesus Christ, even as we are thankful for all that has been.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back. Wow, I'm exhausted after that. Geez, you forget all the places he's been and all the things he has done, and then all the wonderful things that have happened within our diocese. I look forward to the Compass at the beginning of every year because it kind of has an annual summary of everything. Being in the HR world, numbers, people, service, those kind of things are kind of, at our forefront. And so, we have over 1,400 employees within the diocese.
What?
Yeah, I know. Both full and part-time. It's pretty extraordinary when you think about it. So, yeah, so it takes a lot to run this, this huge organization that we have. And I feel incredibly blessed to work with, some of the best in the world, in my opinion. So,
yeah, it's a happy place. And Bishop does put in perspective, he alone gets to have like the unique vantage point of just how much is happening. Our priests know they know their parishes, they talk to their brother priests, they have a big perspective. Us here at the pastoral center, we have our departments and we do see, and especially you, when you get the number 1,400 employees, like, whoa, you got a unique perspective on the whole thing. But really, only Bishop, he sits on the top of the mountain, but then he also descends in a unique way. He does so well.
Right.
He still is like at little masses and little gatherings with, just, that we don't get to experience, but he's on the road all the time in every single place. So it's so cool to hear what he sees from that vantage point.
I know. It makes me, just awe in his humbleness and who he is as an individual. So, yeah.
That's what we have to call him around here, by the way, guys. We have to call him his humbleness as he walks in. Here he is. You're right. Guys, by the way, thank you for the plug. Catholic Compass does have our annual report coming on in the first week of January. So, yes, very impressive statistics from both our development and finance world and also our ministries offices. Like, there's so much going on, and it does provide a great snapshot. So please take time to look at that. One thing, I know we don't need to comment on what he highlighted too much. I did love, this has been 5 ordinations to the priesthood this year. I felt like when Derek and I were over at the Co-Cathedral for the Father Fernando ordination, it's like, oh yeah, we just did this, and like sometimes, we had gaps of a couple of years between ordinations. It felt so cool to be like, we just did this in May. It's so amazing. That vitality is there. It was such a special thing for him to be able to comment on. He's also almost an observer to the whole reality. So I like that a lot.
Yeah, and his appointment is pretty exciting too.
2026 is going to be a ball, guys. He is the chairman-elect of the USCCB Committee on Evangelization and Catechesis, which is a big appointment, and hopefully doesn't overwhelm him. I know it won't. He can handle anything, but definitely something so cool to keep your eye on as far as how he has an impact, such a huge impact on a local church. He's going to have an impact now on the national church in a new way, and maybe he's going to borrow some stuff that we have here and bring it to a different level. So anyhow, you wanted to leave us, so Suzanne, some as we close out this year, some things to be reminded of. And
I was kind of doing some research and looking up, kind of end of year thoughts and I've kind of collected some things from various religious people, from various, other politicians, other, famous people, and then just ordinary folks. And so I wrote down a few things, and I think they're always a good reminder and something nice for us to think about. And the first thing is put God first in all things.
Where have I heard that before?
Yeah. Jesus said to us that the first and greatest of all commands is to love God with all our heart, mind, soul, and strength, then to love our neighbor as ourselves. And so I think we, sometimes we just have to remind ourselves, put God first in all things. Some other things to think about. This is a time to think about New Year's resolutions as well. So, not only the word of the year, but some resolutions maybe. How about order the disordered in your life?
Oh, gosh.
St. Augustine expresses the fruit of all well-ordered life is these words. Peace is the tranquility of order.
Oh, Bishop loves this word, by the way, right now. If you listen to the 50th anniversary Mass, he talked about just this process of ordering our diocese. God is ordering us so that we can receive his presence. Yes.
Yeah. How about be slow to speak and quick to listen?
I'm just going to listen to that one. I'm not going to speak afterwards.
Sounds good. Give thanks to God at all times. Be humble.
Can I stop? I
Sure,
saw one
go
on
ahead.
there that you glossed, live in the presence. What was that one over there?
Live in the presence of God.
Did you see Pope Leo's comments recently?
No.
This is perfect. I'm so glad. He was asked, somebody on, maybe it was a plane ride recently, was asking like, hey, what's a spiritual book that has just been a huge influence on your words? And he mentioned this book called, it's from Brother Lawrence, which is a pseudonym of a monk, I think, who lived 4 centuries ago.
Okay.
And it's called The Practice of the Presence of God. And it's basically just his experience as a religious to just practice living in the presence of God at all hours of the day.
Wow.
If you're familiar with St. Therese of Lisieux, her kind of little way spirituality, it's like that, but 200 or 300 years earlier. And Pope Leo basically said, if you want to know what I'm like and what I've tried to be throughout my life, like that book pretty much has it. I'm striving to live in the presence of God more attentively every day. And
I love it.
So it's a brilliant, Brother Lawrence, guys, just look it up. Buy that book for the new year.
Nice. Some other things. Fall down? ? Get right up. Don't let things get you down. Come on. We got to go. Be a good Samaritan on the road of life. We had our series on the, the spiritual and the corporal works of mercy. So I think it's always a good reminder to us to be able to help others. Do the ordinary with extraordinary love. That's beautiful. And finally, love Mary, talk to Mary, and trust yourself to Mary.
Oh, man.
Yes.
That's a little too Catholic for my taste here, Suzanne. No. Yeah, the cultivation of a relationship with the Blessed Mother it's recommended by every saint, and they never gloss over it as like, oh, it's a nice to have. It's like, nope. Like the pathway that Christ has laid out, as we experience in this Christmas season, is very much to Jesus through Mary. Her yes gets us to Jesus, and it remains the same. So
Absolutely.
Thanks for sharing those nuggets. Guys, that is it for 2025. This is that was our 4th year within the podcast, so we look ahead to our 5th year, 2026. Not our 4th total year. You get what I'm saying? We started in 2021. Anyhow, we'll see you in 2026, guys. We have our next podcast with Dr. Luke Arredondale on Catholic social teaching, so we'll see you then.
Thank you for tuning in today to the Gaudium et Spes podcast. If you would like to know more about our podcast, please visit our website, gaudiumetspes.net, or go to ptdiocese.org and click the button that says podcast. If you listen to the audio version from an app such as Apple Podcast, Spotify, or iHeartRadio, be sure to rate, review, and comment. If you watched us on YouTube, be sure to like and subscribe or leave us a comment there as well. Thank you for joining us.